There you go. Here lies chapter 6, aka integrity. And the saying, remind me again, is this the 5th, the 6th, or the 7th commemoration of chapter 6? Here lies chapter 6, aka integrity. Okay, let me not begin with Roselyn. Let me go to Irongo. We're looking at that particular editorial cartoon and chapter 6 of the Constitution. What would be your remarks? Of course, you have the red card, and you, as a civil society, you're advocating for leadership and integrity.
I mean, I think the first thing is that we're in a vicious battle for the this particular part of the Constitution, and it should not be expected. We've seen 5 years of corruption, abuse of office, not just at the national level, but also the county levels. And therefore, it's only to be expected that at this moment in Kenyan history that we should see this, this battle for Chapter 6. I don't think Chapter 6 is dead or buried. I think it is very much alive and a constitutional reference point, really, not just for the country as we are now, but I think for the future of the country. Why aren't you feeling
the rippling effect of the chapter itself?
I'll just give you an example. Yesterday we had four almost simultaneous statements that were released. One was by the entire leadership of the religious community, and they spoke yesterday in a multi-sectoral forum, and they said very clearly that the IEBC should not clear any of the aspirants that are on the list of 106. In particular, 82 names that are essentially accused of a range of different things, from obstruction of investigators to flouting procurement rules, to influencing tenders, to diverting public funds into private interests. And I think, you know, those cases reflect not just governors, but also senators and women's representatives. And I think the first thing that we need to say is, you know, the religious leaders have spoken. Will the IEBC hear this? Yesterday also, the Chapter 6 vetting organization said that they are behind the ACC list. And again, I think this puts pressure on the IEBC to essentially do, I mean, if anybody would be, I'm not sure what the word is on national television to describe what happened in that cartoon, but if anybody is relieving themselves on Chapter 6, I would hope that the first person would not be the IEBC. Mm-hmm. I think that's the first point. The second, you know, yesterday also Senator Wamatangi actually spoke on this issue as well. And what was interesting for me is we've seen not just senators and governors speaking on this issue, but also we've seen cabinet secretaries. I think Cabinet Secretary Lands, Cabinet Secretary Kaimeni spoke on this issue last week and said that actually, in his view, it would not be in the interest to clear politicians that have a track record that is definitely unethical and really suggests that they are unfit for office.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's hear from Roselyn, because I think people are saying this is too late in the day. We have the report from the EACC presented to you with 106 candidates, and of course they're saying you don't have any constitutional mandate to enforce Chapter 6 of the Constitution.
We absolutely have the mandate to impose, to make sure that we implement Chapter 6 of the Constitution. I mean, it's very clear in our regulations, but. You know, and this is a commitment you have seen from the very beginning from Chairman Chebukati. He was he played a leadership role in establishing the multi-sectoral interagency Chapter 6 working group, because our intention from the very beginning was to ensure that as we start the nomination process, we are able to look at all the aspirants before we clear them to become candidates. And that is why at the IEBC we also set up our own integrity committee that we hope to receive all the information about all the candidates as the aspirants as we clear them. Unfortunately, I must say, the information came to us too late. For instance, from EACC, it came after we had already done the clearance of candidates. It would have been better if we had received the information much earlier. But also, it is incomplete. The information is incomplete, you know, because the law is very clear that we can bar people once all avenues for redress have been exhausted. Yes. But you get cases in which you are told the person has been found culpable. What does that mean? Has the person been prosecuted? You know, it would have been good in hindsight, you know, and I'm hoping these are lessons we are picking, that the EACC and other organizations that are given the responsibility to deal with these issues, prosecute the cases, finalize the cases, and then give us the lists. So then we can be able to deal with them. Or we hope that the Supreme Court will be able to give us their review or their understanding in the case in which Kenya National Human Rights Commission has put forward, because that will help clarify these issues. And the advocacy that Irungu and his colleagues are doing is actually really important. It's absolutely important, because it's keeping us also on our toes, and all of us as a country on our toes in looking at these issues, because integrity shouldn't be just an issue that is in the Constitution as a paper, but it's something that needs to be implemented. We will do our part, but we need to do them within the law. It has to be cases that have been prosecuted, have been finalized, then we can be able to say, yes, we cannot buy you on this basis. And we've done so for one of the cases that EACC provided in which there was a conviction.
But the question will be then, when was this multi-sectoral agency constituted?
I think it was constituted sometime in March.
Sometime in March?
Yes.
Don't you think also that is way too late in the day to actually constitute this in March, and then you wait for EACC to come up with this, then you to come up with their report, then you say this report is incomplete?
You know, Debarl, I wish we had...
And then you've gone full steam ahead to actually give the candidates...
I wish, Debarl, I wish we were here as commissioners. Again, I'm just speaking as a commissioner. I wish I was given this job last year. I wish Chairman Chebukati and their team were in place last year. But we came in place on 18th of January. And we started looking at places and very different steps of things that we needed to do. And this is one of the things that we picked up as an important issue and picked it up. We gave responsibilities to the various actors within that multi-sectoral team to do. And the Ministry of Education and the Commission of Higher Education, for instance, did a fantastic job. They were able to go through the lists and advise us on people who had issues with their university degrees. And so we were able to move forward with that. But cases of prosecution are not cases that were going to ever be done between March, even if you were to look at that, between March and now. These are things that should be done. You know, these are cases, they're not new cases that EACC is bringing.
Yes.
Why have they never been prosecuted? Why were they never prosecuted to the conclusion, so that when we are given a list, we're given a list of cases of people whose cases have been finalized, rather than cases that are being investigated, or people who have been found culpable, but without more information beyond that. And that's why we have written to the EACC and asked them to provide us more details for the cases that they are identifying as being culpable. What do they mean? What is the procedure? What is going on in those cases?
And of course, well, it's unfortunate that we tried to reach also to the EACC, at least to have their representation here, but that failed as well. They will be able to answer this particular question. So the EACC, they've done a sloppy job. Is that what we're saying?
Debarl, I'd like to just refer to the actual document that the IEBC has there, and I'll hand it to Commissioner so she can look. It's called the Integrity Verification Document. It lists 106 candidates. Let me just give you a couple of cases which, for me, don't sound very sloppy nor problematic. The case of Garissa Governor Aden Jama. The Commission received and investigated allegations of abuse of office, willful procedure, the loss of up to 70 million shillings. Investigation has established that the candidate was culpable and was charged. The matter is pending in court. There are 6 cases like this, which are not just, I guess what you say, under investigation, but there are governors who are actually in court at the moment trying to protect themselves against very serious allegations of loss of 40 million, 50 million shillings, procurement irregularities, and this document is with the IEBC right now. So it's not really the case that the EACC has done a sloppy job. I think that may be convenient for the Commission to argue, but I think the facts of the matter are there. And let me just refer the viewers to the website www.redcardke.co.ke, where they can actually download this document and read it for themselves. And they can make their own judgment about whether EACC has done a sloppy job or whether IEBC is not able to rise to the moment, essentially, and do what they say they have the constitutional mandate to do, which is to bar these candidates. The second point, I think, really, and I'll go back to the presentation last night by the chief executive of the IEBC, where he said that it is true that they have cleared the candidates, but they have not gazetted them. We have 25 days from this morning for the IEBC to complete this process and to ensure that the candidates that are, or the aspirants, I don't think we should call them candidates yet, but the aspirants that are in this list are essentially either cleared of the allegations, and I think we should say, as the National Integrity Alliance, that the more people that we can clear from the list, the better. There is no witch hunting here. There is no sense that we need to have, hundreds of people blocked from the elections. What we really would like to see is a very small list of people that are not fit for office. And if the IEBC can do that and tell the country, of the 83 that we have on this list, we have investigated and we have cleared. And perhaps even you could share with us in the public domain their self-declarations, so that we can actually make a judgment as voters whether we also believe that these people are fit for office. And I think those are the two actions that IEBC could take now and help this election essentially be a credible election.
All right. Are we also reading maybe different views into the law? Because we hear some of the aspirants or the candidates that are coming to the fore, they're saying, yes, the law is very clear that you cannot bar anyone from running for office if they are not convicted, right? That is in the Constitution. Apollos, maybe you can make it so clear for us.
And also that, as Gladys Cholet said, he taught the chief executive of the IEBC.
That doesn't mean that we're not the right people.
Yes. Yeah, but that's on a light touch.
There's an issue there.
Yeah, but coming to your question, first of all, it's good to reflect. The Constitution has got 18 chapters. Huh? The Leadership and Integrity is chapter 6. So in the hierarchy of chapters, it's a very, very important chapter. Now, if you look at the other chapters that are ahead of it, are only the ones dealing with the supremacy of the Constitution. Then chapter 2 is the territory, okay? Chapter 3 is citizenship. Chapter 4 is Bill of Rights.
Yes.
Chapter 5 is land and environment.
Environment, yes.
Okay? Then chapter 6 comes in. It comes ahead of even the representation of the people and the executive. So it's a very important chapter.
Yes.
But it is the most mistreated chapter. But let me say the things that have happened. First of all, realizing this chapter 6 will require concerted effort, because the leadership doesn't seem to promote this particular chapter. And I want to tell you this. We have integrity pillars in a country. And integrity pillars include, like in Kenya's perspective, we have the EACC, we have the DPP, we have the police, we have the judiciary, we have all these people who have now been grouped as chapter 6 agencies, okay? Those are all integrity pillars, and each of them have got a responsibility to actually implement this chapter in one way or the other. If you are taken you are being prosecuted in the judiciary is supposed to adjudicate. The police is supposed to investigate. So all of this, they have their own system. Yeah. But the problem we have is the use of these integrity pillars for political purposes. That is why the fight has not succeeded, and also the implementation. And why am I saying this? Why are these reports coming at this time? Look at the timing. Okay, let's take even the head of state. The head of state complained one day that he was given some list, remember? And he asked even his CS, and he said even his political friends to step aside. And then when he was looking down the line, he said he only burned bridges because it was just hot air. Okay? So what did EACC do? Are they using that office only for political vendetta? And look at the sequencing, and which the commissioner has brought out. They wish this report could have come earlier. Why now? So you have to ask yourself these questions, and this is where the problem starts. But coming to what has been done, and I have to commend also the Red Card and Irungu's group. At the Law Society, we did attempt to do some work earlier, which I actually also shared with him. And that report is called Walking the Talk, Realizing the Integrity. Now, what we did was to document all the reports of commissions of inquiry, where taxpayers' money has been used and people have been mentioned as culpable. These are commissions of inquiry set up by government. And then Public Accounts Committee report where people have been named. Okay? So we decided to collect all that information and synthesize them and put them that these are the people who have been adversely mentioned in either this commission report, commissions of inquiry, or Public Accounts Committee report. And put it out there, shared it with these integrity pillars, the DPP, ESCC, and said, we have now synthesized it for you. The ball is now in your court. But everything went mute.
And what could be so wrong with or immoral with a person who has been adversely mentioned maybe in corruption to step aside, right, for the due process of the law to, take its course of investigation while you've stepped aside? Why do we still hold them in office, even when we have a Chapter 6 of the Constitution?
Because in this country we have a culture where our leaders do not treat their offices they hold as public trusts. They treat the offices they hold as entitlements. And for me, I think that is the starting point. The Constitution is very clear that the offices are held as public trusts. And once an issue has been raised against a public officer, state officer, then they should actually treat that office as a trust and step aside, as is the case in other mature democracies and in other jurisdictions. But looking at that cartoon, Debarl, let me just Irongo didn't want to mention so much about what he was being polite about.
Probably still watching.
About the cartoon. And Mboya here said that Chapter 6 is the most abused. I look at that cartoon and in the common parlance of Nairobians, this is, Nairobi here, this is what you would see most wananchi doing. Standing by the roadside, dashing to the to the bush there and relieving themselves and all this. But if this were to be taken literally, and if Kenyans were to see the president or the deputy president stop their motorcade and maybe pull by the roadside to do what other Kenyans do, other men, not Kenyan, the men, mostly men do, I think it will paint a very bad picture, which speaks to something. To those who much is given, much is expected. Yeah. These are leaders of the country. We do not expect them. There is a certain standard that we hold them up to. And for me, one thing that I always ask myself is why we are so quick to hold all the other Kenyans to a higher standard. Right. But when it comes to the political leaders, we tend to lower this standard. And I'll give you an example that we are all familiar with. And even Dr. Akombe, myself, and other people, when you're applying for these state office jobs, the raft of issues, clearance that you have to get. Give us your criminal record, that you're okay, you can stand for office. Number 2, that you pay your taxes, so you get the KRA clearance. Number 3, that if you went to university, you've been paying your higher education loans board. Number 4, you never issued a bouncing check or something like that. And this is actually, these are not asked so that the employing agencies can have a good record about you and think about how they can use it later. They're actually asking for this information to determine your suitability to hold that office. I therefore find it really strange that when it comes to especially the elective position, we are still seeking to invoke the criminal standard. And as I said earlier, that's why we've gone to the Supreme Court to ask what should be the fit and proper test. Is it strictly a criminal standard? And this only applies to elective positions, yes, or should we apply the ethical standard as was envisaged in the Leadership and Integrity Act? And the matter is coming up on the 21st, which is fairly soon, and we really hope that the Supreme Court is going to give us direction on this matter once and for all.
So the problem question that we've always asked ourselves, is it that there was no clarity in the Constitution as far as if it's a criminal standard or an ethical standard as well, or there is a lacuna in the law itself?
I can answer that question for you. But let me go back to the cartoon.
Yes.
This is to some extent a very not funny cartoon, particularly when you're talking about serious issues. That's number 1. Number 2, you notice that, as my good friend Morara has mentioned, this is a very bad habit by men. But in most cases, so that they don't do this, you find various signs all over the city reading Usikojoe hapa. But in this one, it's written Kojoa hapa. But it's worse when you're saying Kojoa hapa kwa katiba. It's a very bad depiction. If you look at the crown, it's like what they say, the famous phrase that, like Caesar's wife you must be above reproach.
Beyond reproach.
That's what it means. That's the crown that the president is wearing. So we are holding them to account. But let me answer your question. If you look at chapter 6, and I'm just going to take you through the Article 73, responsibilities of leadership. 74, oath of state officers. 75, conduct of state officers. 76, financial probity of state officers. 77, restriction on activities of state officers. 78, citizenship and leadership. 79, legislation to establish ethics and anti-corruption. And then 80, legislation on leadership. If you turn the page and go to D, that is 80D, it reads, making or any other provision necessary for ensuring the promotion of the principles of leadership and integrity referred in this chapter and the enforcement of this chapter. So the problem is in 80. The problem is not in the aspirations from 73 to 79, because they are very clear. Now, we might blame the IEBC, but the problem is not the IEBC. And the question that we must all ask ourselves, and I think the Morara and his team are absolutely late in this. This problem occurred in 2012. And it occurred in 2012 when the Justice Minister was a gentleman called Eugene Wamalo. People may not know why the late Mutula Kilonzo was removed from office. He had drafted a very strict law on leadership and integrity. He was removed so that they could dance around the Leadership and Integrity Act.
To mutilate it.
To just mutilate it.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what happened.
But
they mutilated it,
yes,
watered it down, and therefore one of the most useless legislations in this country is called the Leadership and Integrity Act. That's why stealing in Kenya is like, you become a fashionista. They call it that on the streets. It's trending. You steal, you get all the coverage in the newspaper, live recordings. You know, they follow you everywhere. They take pictures of you in different dresses. If
graffiti on matatus as well.
They fit you in matatus. You end up in cartoons. You end up in the newspaper. If you are corrupt and you are a thief. That is what happens in Kenya. Corruption
walk.
and can't walk. I speak in English. So the problem is this. Who has laid the standard? I've sat in Parliamentary Account Committee where we have said you should surcharge this person for loss of public funds of 800 million, 300 million, whatever. It has not happened. There's a body, another one, useless body called the EACC. Its work is to write letters, clearing people, and sometimes then investigating others. They don't finish, others are cleared quietly, others are never prosecuted. So Debarl, even when we ask the IEBC to do certain things, we are asking them to do something that ideally they cannot do. And let me explain why. The IEBC is a quasi-judicial body, quasi-judicial. So every decision that they make must be based on the law, not what you think. So therefore, if you write Apollo Mboya is a thief and should not hold public office or should not be a leader, there must be facts. That is the way it is. So therefore, we are doing this a little too late. A little too late in the day. Because we, the ones who are checking on public funds, have said there are so many governors who should not be in office. Forget about vying. Should not be in office. Should be prosecuted, should be at home or impeached. Wait at home until these Black Marias come for them and take them to industrial areas. But now they are already competing. They're using public resources. Even now they're using public resources. So I understand what everybody is doing, including them. But can I say this? The horse has taken off. It's too late, unfortunately. And
too
to
late
blame,
for now,
yes,
but for
and
posterity,
to blame IEBC.
But for posterity, right?
For posterity, what you can do, and Irungu has just mentioned, is called name and shame. Just name the thieves and tell the public, you are electing a thief. You are electing a corrupt person. You are electing an immoral person. You know, on the question of morals, not on the question that a person has been found culpable of theft of public funds, because we have the reports. Yes, we have the reports.
You have the reports, but it is not. You know, gone through the whole, you know, the whole continuum of the process until they are convicted. So if actually
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm trying to say.
It will be a bit injudicious to actually name these people. And
no, I'm talking on moral standards.
On moral standards.
On a moral platform. If you look at 76 or 73, by the way, the standards there, and that is the standard we used when we were talking to your predecessors in the IEBC. We asked them, we put them on a moral platform. We told them, even if we don't find you capable, on a moral standard, you're incapable of being the managers of our elections. Could you please leave? And they agreed to leave on a moral platform, but not on the other standards. So, to the extent that
on a moral platform, but it's not predicated on the law. People, let's say from Dorothy, because Dorothy, I think now you have yes.
Before Dorothy speaks,
Roselyn
will not speak. Roselyn may speak.
Thank you, Roselyn.
Debarl.
Thank you.
And I agree with Senator that we are asking IEBC to do things that it's not their work. The other integrity pillars have failed to do their work.
Yes.
Having failed to do their work, they are throwing the ball
to somebody else.
Yeah, to do it. But this chapter 6, let me just give 73, even 74. Let's take 74.
Yes.
Okay. 74 is on oath of office of state officers.
Yes.
Okay. State officers take oath. Let me tell you, if you go contrary to the oath, then you have already fallen short of chapter 6. Which means it's not a criminal standard. I can hold you
to
account only because of oath. I don't even have to bring other laws. I said, where's the oath that you took? And most of the oath that is taken in this country to uphold the constitution, to protect. So long as I can demonstrate that you did not protect it.
Yes.
Okay? You have already fallen short of chapter 6. So it is not a criminal standard. That's what I wanted to bring out.
And Nancy Baranza pinches somebody's nose. She goes home because she's brought dishonor to the office and all this. So again,
that is what I was talking about.
So she didn't demonstrate respect for the people.
You did.
Yeah.
And then she dishonored the nation.
She dishonored, into the office.
I mean, I think the question that voters need to be asking also, I think, of the leaders is this section 73. Maybe it needs to be distilled by either the IEBC or some of us and given to people. It says, if you have demonstrated disrespect for the people, if I can read it that way.
Yes.
If you have brought dishonor to the nation, if you have lost public confidence in the integrity of the office, if you have used the office either in your private, I guess, if you have behaved, whether in public or official life, in a manner that shows a conflict between your personal interest and public duties, or if you have compromised a public office, or if you have demeaned the office, all of these means that you have violated the constitutional document that we only have one. We only have one constitution. And as Apollo has said, this is chapter 6. It's not a schedule at the back of or an appendix or the blank page in this particular constitution. It is actually chapter 6.
Or an addendum.
Or an addendum.
Yes.
Or an afterthought.
It's being treated as a list of suggestions.
No, this is not one of these things they call the constitutional suggestion. It is actually a constitutional provision. Yeah.
All right. Roselyn, having all this list of 106 given by the ESCC, so will we just throw them down the tubes?
I wish we could not do that, but you had Senator Kilonzo spoke very eloquently, in a more eloquent manner than I would. I mean, obviously he's a lawyer; he understands the law more than a lay person like myself. So that is the dilemma that we find ourselves in, where you have the provisions in the Constitution, you also have the provisions in the law that insists that you have to have evidence for the kind of rulings that you're going to make. But I think what our CEO said last night on NTV is what we are looking at. That until the 24th of June, when we are supposed to gazette the names of the candidates, if we get more information from ESCC regarding any of those candidates that we have already cleared, we have the authority not to proceed with gazetting their names and putting them on the ballot. So we are hoping that in the next few days that we could get one or two cases. By the way, that is the discussion that we've been having even among ourselves as commissioners, yes, saying that, you know, this is a very important issue. Chapter 6 is very important. We kept looking for evidence and saying, we are seeing all these cases that the Red Card campaign has given us. We have seen the cases that EACC has given us. Can we find 2 or 3 or 4 cases, at least, that meet the thresholds, that we can be able to show to the Kenyans that this is not just a law, that we are willing and ready to do our part of the job. But we have limitations in terms of the evidence to be able to move forward. And we hope that the EACC will spend the next few days to give us some feedback on the very specific cases that we sent back to them, and that we'll look at them, and as provided for in our practices, then we'll see whether we have enough evidence to fit that threshold, not to proceed.
Okay. Before you go, we have callers who are hanging on the line. We'll come back to you. Right? Let's just hear.
The thought is going to disappear.
No, hold on to it. Hold on to it. We have callers who are hanging on the line. We have Benjamin on the line. Good morning, Benjamin. Calling from Taita. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning to you. You have a question or a contribution for our panelists this morning? Yes, please. Very briefly.
Yeah, very briefly.
Please.
The fact that the past you have there, the discussion is very mature. Thank you so much.
Well, I think I'm sorry to butt in, Benjamin. The connection is a bit the reception is a bit very spotty. We'll call back. We'll call you back. But we have Madenge hanging on the line. Good morning, Madenge.
Good morning, everybody. Asubuhi.
Niko salama sana. How are you?
Yeah. Sasa mimi nataka kwenda kwa madam IEBC.
Yes.
Mmoja kwanza nilikuwa namuuliza kwa nini sisi tunaambiwa kwa matv, tunaambiwa katika kila mali twende kuverify, na wenyewe tunaambiwa twende kuverify kama kwa zetu ziko tayari ama ziko pale. Na ile kitu tutaenda kuverify wenyewe kwanza hawaja verify wenyewe katika ofisi zao. Sasa tunaona hawako tayari, na wanatuambia sisi twende kuverify. Tunaenda kuverify kitu gani na wenyewe kwanza hawaja verify katika ofisi zao. Kuna kesi nyingi ambazo ziko ofisini kwao hapo ndani na nje ya ofisi zao. Watu bado hawajajui ni kitu gani watafanya mpaka sasa, kwa sababu tunasikia wakati kila kesi ya IEBC, kila wakati ya IEBC procurement nini kila kitu. Halafu naniambia mimi nikaverify. Mimi kwa naomba safari hatuwezi kuwa Wakenya tunalipa pesa mingi za kufanya uchaguzi kila wakati baada ya miaka 5. Na hiyo ni pesa sisi tunalipa kama ushuru wetu, na bado tunafanya mambo ambayo hayajulikani, na mambo ambayo yanaweza kutupiganisha sisi Wakenya. Na kuna sisi Wakenya tupigane, ni nyinyi mnatupiganisha kila wakati. Tafadhali jaribu kufanya kazi ambayo itatufanya sisi tuwe na amani.
Thank you. Thank you, Madenge. Asante sana kutoka Mombasa. We have also Robert hanging on the line. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Debarl.
Good morning to you. Question or contribution?
I have a question and a contribution.
Very briefly, sir.
First of all, I want to congratulate you.
Yes.
For this great effort. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I want to congratulate you for bringing IEBC on board. Because they have been getting the information from the leaders. If you bring the IEBC on the board of the panel,